Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Oh, boy. I understand that you just returned from a trip to down south.
I was in Mexico for 9 days.
So how was that?
It was wonderful. I was in Cuernavaca, which is one of the nicest places in Mexico. Did a workshop for 16 people on our holistic health coach plan. Went well.
Awesome. So when they go through the holistic health plan, do they become certified in
Yes.
those treatments? Mm-hmm.
They become certified as holistic or advanced holistic health coaches. Advanced ones can add past life therapy as well as all the other stuff.
And did you teach past life therapy and regression, how to do it, and how that all works there as well?
Absolutely. And two of the people only spoke Spanish, but we had good interpreters.
How long does it take for a person to understand how past life regression works, what to expect, the outcomes, and maybe what do you do if things go wrong?
Well, it took me two full days. The first day, both Sergei Sorin and I split into teams, and each of us took half the class and did a personal past life therapy on each student separately. The second day, the students did one another with us observing and monitoring. Now they actually have to do 25 cases at home to finish the certification.
Dr. Shealy, when you've done these past life regressions, and you've done a lot of them, have you ever experienced anything going wrong which was of concern to you?
No.
Or does that never happen?
I have never had that happen. Now, I can tell you, about 1 person in 200 won't go there. Now, I had 2 of the students didn't want to go there. Or, well, we induced them. You remember the technique. And when I said, okay, now back in time and space, 2 of them said, I'm not there. I'm still on the cloud. And so in both cases, I said, okay, I want you to write me a movie script about anything you want to write about. And one of the students started writing a movie script, and after a while she said, oh, I don't want to do this. I want to go to past life. And she did. The other one, I just persisted a little bit, and she went into the past life. All of the students except one were women.
Dr. Shealy, some people think that, I don't know what the right word to use is, but it's seriously against their religion to discuss or even think about.
Yeah, they're what I call the flaming fundamentalists who have no fun at anything in life. I consider that slightly worse fetish than veganism. But that's just my opinion. And I know they hate me and think I'm going to the devil and all that crap. But basically, reincarnation was considered part of Christianity until 325, when Constantine ordered the creation of the religion to take control of the world, and they left out reincarnation because they felt that, I don't know whether just Constantine or the council that he convened, but they felt that they didn't want to give people a second chance.
And that's interesting, because we talk about giving people second chances all the time.
Right. But since the purpose of creating all of this was to gain control of the world, and then no question Constantine wanted that, he wanted them to feel that they couldn't have a second chance because he couldn't control them as well.
Yeah, and I've also often wondered about this heaven and hell thing, and how religion has been used to control us.
Yes.
Like, if you don't do all these things as prescribed, you're going to hell. Now, you can go to, a broker in a confessional, and you can say, "Bless me, Father, for I have done these things against the rules, and here's what I've done." And that broker says, "All right, Vinny, well, I'll tell you what. 10 Hail Marys, 10 Our Fathers, an act of contrition, and you're good until you do it again. And then come on back, and we'll talk about it and give you 10 more Hail Marys." And, making light of it. But it seems that religion has been used to keep us in line. And I think keeping us honest and above board is a good thing. I really do. I think raping, robbing, pillaging, plundering, kind of things that politicians do is absolutely wrong. However, they seem to get away with it, and we can't do it.
Well,
and not get away with it.
That, of course, is where we create karma. Karma is the result of what I call unfinished business. In other words, karma is paying the price for something you've done wrong.
And do you think that that karma is one for one? A bad deed comes back like 100% of the time, or almost all the time, or some of the time, or how often does bad karma?
Eventually, unless you somehow go through what I would call transformation of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you at a soul or personality level have to pay the price. Let me give you one example. Back many, many years ago, I was doing a past life. I was doing a group thing with a group of patients. One of the patients got up and walked out of the room. Well, I finished as quickly as I could. I went, "John, what's going on?" Well, he had been there for a week already, and he hadn't told me. He said, "When I was 14, I murdered a 10-year-old child. I spent 14 years in the penitentiary." He was released at age 28, got married within a year or two, and when his first child was born, he developed absolutely incapacitating back pain. And that, to me, was karma. And I finally said to him, "There's only one choice I can see. You need to forgive yourself. Society says you've done your debt. You need to forgive yourself, and the only way I can see to do that is to go work with children for the rest of your life."
Mm-hmm. That brings to mind another question, Dr. Shealy. I mentioned the confessional, and so the priest behind this opaque, we'll call it partition, hear all kinds of things that people have done, and I'm sure they recognize their voices at times. "Bless me, Father, for I've sinned," and maybe it's murder, maybe it's rape, maybe it's robbery, maybe it's burglary, maybe it's assault, battery, all kinds of things, beating wives, and whatever they hear. And I'm sure that doctors hear things too that are very upsetting. Dr. Shealy, as a medical doctor, do you think that these take a physical and mental and health toll on doctors?
Oh, yeah.
And priests?
Sure. Again, way back when I was in my medical school, but especially in my training as a neurosurgeon, we deal with some horrendous horrible, damaged people. And I had to learn how to detach emotionally and not allow myself to suffer from watching other people suffer. I mean, it does require that kind of detachment, which I think it's not that you don't care, but you can't afford to let yourself go to, cry or get depressed over somebody else's problems. You should train yourself to only do that over your own problems, not somebody else's.
And I've heard I've heard that people who try to help other people and just seem to be passionate about it, sometimes they hear things like, well, you can't save every puppy in the pound. And I think that's absolutely true. Try as we might. There are puppies who just are not capable of being saved because they can't seem to follow the best way of doing things. They hurt themselves either intentionally or unintentionally, but we can't save every puppy in the pound. I heard something very interesting, Dr. Shealy. I was watching a television show with our family. And there was a younger person, a girl, and an older person, we'll say like a father image. And the younger person was seeking the advice of the father image. And the cell phone rang. And it was the younger person's cell phone. And it was an important moment in the discussion between the father image and the girl. And the cell phone rang, and and the father image looked at the cell phone. The girl looked at the cell phone, and the father image said something absolutely brilliant. And it was one word. And that word was choose. Choose what's important. Is it more important to take that cell phone call? Or is it more important to hear the advice and counsel that was going to be dispensed?
That needs more discussion.
Yes. When we come back, and I think that's a very valid point. And I don't get into that. I don't have that problem with me being like that girl with the cell phone. That doesn't happen to me, because I don't have one. We'll be right back. Class Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. If you'd like to go to his website, purchase some of his books, some of his vitamins, mineral supplements, and so forth, peruse Optimal Health. It's right there. normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, we were talking about the cell phone and the fact that it's invaded just about everyone's life. And there are times that are important to families. Times when maybe mother and father can get together, or parents and children, but it seems to stop instantly when that phone rings or that text comes in, and that person with the cell phone seems to have to literally stop everything and turn full attention to that cell phone.
I consider cell phones the most antisocial device ever invented. To me, they're almost like dropping a bomb. Mm-hmm. I feel it is totally unacceptable, rude, and wrong. I mean, any way you look at it, you should not interrupt a conversation with another person, whether it's a family member or a friend or a stranger even, to take a phone call or a stupid text message from someone. That is, I believe, the height of karma. It's going to produce some new karma for those people.
I mentioned this once on the air, I was at a meetup, and I had just had it with the cell phones. They were just, I found them so offensive and so annoying. And people were, at the meetup, I was donating my time and my money to be there. and preparing for it. And we had great instructors, as you have been many times, Dr. Shealy, at our meetup. And I just couldn't stand the fact that people were paying attention to their cell phones during these informative educational discussions and seminars. And so one day I just said, let me pass the microphone around. I'd like everyone to take a chance and take a turn, and let's talk about this. What are your thoughts about cell phones at the meetup? And what I was going to say is, if you guys want them, that's fine. I'm out of here. I don't need to be here. And so there was a young person. Most people said, we can do without cell phones for 3 hours. And there was a young person who had come to a bunch of meetups, and he said, well, my grandmother is 80-something, and she may need help, and she may need to call me, and I have to have my cell phone. And I said, okay, if your grandmother needs you, then you should not be here. You should be there rather than be a half hour away.
I love you, Vince. I think we almost always agree on everything, but on this one, you and I we're like twins.
Mm-hmm. Well, I went on to, I figured I would help him while he was down and keep him down a little longer. And I said, my mother, our children's grandmother, is in her 90s, older. And what I've done is I've left the telephone number by the phone of the restaurant where we are right now. Now, I know that they will answer the phone. I know that if my mom says my son Vincent Finelli's there, may I speak with him, they absolutely know who I am at the restaurant, and they will come and get me. So I don't need a cell phone. But you need to plan for that. And the young person was at a serious disadvantage because there is no answer for that. There is no answer for that other than the travel time. But it seems to me that we are using cell phones as a way of, if we're bored, we just call somebody. We interrupt that person. We're bored, so we just take up their time. If we can't plan and we want to go to, if we're going to the food store and we say, I'll tell you what, don't tell me what to get. I'm not going to ask you guys what I should get while I'm there and save you all a trip. I'm talking about like one person in the family going to the supermarket. I'll call you when I get there. And then they're in the aisle, not paying attention to anything, talking to someone on the phone while they're pushing their cart, totally oblivious to everything around them. I object to it. And I think it's causing us to be dumber by the second. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. Dr. Shealy and I are talking about paying attention, concentration, and, being respectful. And the cell phone is a real problem. And Dr. Shealy, I want to share a story with you. Back in the 1990s, I was teaching a high school class, and we were manufacturing computers. And I had officers. My students were officers. They ran for office, and like vice president of manufacturing, vice president of operations, and inventory control, and all kinds of vice presidents. And one of the things that we had in our classroom was a telephone, and the phone would ring all the time. And there was someone who would be assigned to answer the phone. If that person couldn't do it, whoever was next to the phone would answer the phone, and we had a protocol for doing that and being polite and taking complete messages. But for some reason, some of the students were unable to take complete messages. And I tried to figure out, what can I do? How can I make them understand that I need to know who called, when that person called, what the call was about, what number I should return if it was for me, what I needed to do. And so we had these pink slips, while you were out messages, message forms back then, and we printed them up. But I'd come back into the class and from running an errand, and the students would say, "Oh, Mr. Finelli, you got a phone call," and I'd say, "Okay, who called?" I didn't get his name. Okay, and it was starting to bother me. So what I did, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Dr. Shealy. So what I did was, in the operation of this classroom, manufacturing computers that we were selling, and we had a pretty large business out of a classroom, 60 students, and I would have training sessions where I would be in the center of the room, and the students would sit around in a circle. They'd bring their rolly chairs over there, and we would have a discussion. I'd be training them and instructing them, and I would stop in the middle of it, and I'd say, Susie, phone rang, and it was for you. And Susie would say, well, who was it? I can't remember. I don't know. Oh, it was about Saturday. It was a guy, and he called, and it was about Saturday, and he wanted you to... No, it was Friday. And she would be like on the edge of her seat, like, Mr. Finelli, you did get that information. I go, oh, no, it wasn't for you, Susie. It was you, Mary. It was for you. And what I was trying to tell them is the importance of paying attention, because I showed them in a little skit that I developed that what it was like to be on my side when they didn't give me the information. Have you ever done anything like that, Dr. Shealy, to dramatically act out a skit to teach people to pay attention?
Oh, yes. Sometimes it's sarcasm. Sometimes it's shouting. Sometimes it's just obvious public ignoring.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that leads me to my next question. Back in the 60s, 1960s, people would buy new cars, and they might order them from the dealership, and that order would be relayed to the manufacturer. Well, sometimes those cars would be plagued with problems, and there was a term for that, and they'd say, well, that must be a Monday car. It must have been built on Monday in Detroit, one of the Ford, General Motors, Chrysler. It must have been, built on Monday, because that's when the guys would come in hungover and they weren't paying attention and they didn't want to be there, and it was really a tough day for them. So Monday cars were more problematic, it seemed, than Wednesday cars. And they would, the discussion would be, well, if you're going to buy a car you don't want, or buy a car, you don't want one built on a Monday. And you don't want one built on a Friday, because that's when the guys want to go out after. So they're thinking about, what they're going to do. They're not paying attention to what they're doing, and they don't want to be there. So you don't want one on Monday because they're hungover. You don't want one on Friday because they're not paying attention. So here's a question about medicine. Is there a day, and is there a time, generally speaking, that is best for surgery?
Well, that takes us to a very interesting concept called critical days. Way back in the early 70s, I learned about something called critical days, and there are 3 different kinds of critical days, but there's sort of this sinusoidal time of good and bad, if you will, and when it crosses the line, either from good to bad or bad to good, is the most critical day of all. I actually went back and looked at the time when a whole bunch of my patients, I don't remember 50 or 100, had their injury or their surgery that led to their chronic invalid state, and it was extremely strongly associated. That particular day in their life was extremely associated with a critical day. So it does look as if something in biorhythm affects us.
Okay, so it's not a Monday or Friday thing as much as it is an individual thing with biorhythms. And that was that I'm trying to remember, is that like a 30-day or 28 or 29-day cycle, something like that?
Exactly. It includes each of those. There's a physical one, an emotional one, and a mental or intellectual one. In other words, there are 3 different cycles that interact at certain points. And it depends again on when the cycle essentially crosses the midline, so to speak.
And this biorhythm starts at birth, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
So does that mean, Dr. Shealy, that if we're going to have surgery, the question we want to ask of our surgeon is, when were you born?
Oh, absolutely.
And
I always ask that question anyway, because even knowing the sun sign tells me a lot about someone.
Okay. So if we know our surgeon's birth date, we can then plot that person's biorhythm, and then when we're scheduled for surgery and they say, okay, that's Tuesday the 27th, we go, can't do Tuesday.
Right.
I'm looking right here. It looks like I'm going to die on the operating table. Let's go for a different day. I mean, is that what we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay. And let's talk about sun signs then, Dr. Shealy. And well, as far as biorhythms, I'm sure there's a program on the internet where you can type in biorhythms and type in the date and find out, what the horizontal axis is, and look for those sinusoidal waves and find the ones that are not at the intersection of the horizontal. Is that right?
Absolutely. Right. You got it. Biorhythm is all you need to do.
Okay. And what about sun signs? What do we need to know about them in terms of surgery? Not that I'm planning surgery. I just think, these things happen in people's lives, and I think maybe they should know a little bit more about it.
Well, if it's an elective surgery, I would definitely want to look up my own critical days and not have surgery on that kind of day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, beyond that, of course, I don't think the surgeon's likely allow you to do his or her biorhythm. So but that's got to be part of it too. I mean, even though your biorhythm might be good, it might be a particularly bad day for the surgeon.
Yeah. Yep. Well, there's roughly 30 days in a month, and taking out a couple of those days, there's plenty of days left, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Dr. Shealy, I was talking with...
In a 28-day cycle,
mm-hmm.
there are actually 6 times when it crosses the line, either down or up. So, but at least 2 of those come close enough together, probably only about 4 days out of the month, that would be critical.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking about, as we were talking about this, a discussion I had with my grandfather back in the 1960s. And we were working on his old car. And he was telling me, I was asking him about the war. And that war happened to be World War I. And he was talking about this man that he knew that had surgery. And I have a feeling it was a battlefield wound. And they saved his life, but boy, he was just uncomfortable. And so after years of dealing with this discomfort, he finally went to a surgeon and said, look, I'm not right. I think something was left in my body that shouldn't be there. And the patient said he wanted to be operated on again to see if that was the case. And so reluctantly that happened. And the surgeon, the second surgeon, found a sponge left in the body from the first surgery. So my question, I have several questions about this. Does this still happen, Dr. Shealy?
Unfortunately, let's face it, human error is always a possibility. It does happen.
Okay. Is there a test? Is there a blood test that would say, geez, there's inflammation, it just doesn't seem to want to go away? Maybe that's it. Is there a blood test or X-ray or ultrasound, or what would a patient ask for to determine whether there is a sponge or something left in there.
Well, an MRI would be the best test, but if it's something as simple as, quote, simple as a sponge, I don't think that would show up on an MRI.
X-ray?
No, plain X-ray definitely. Well, of course, if it's metal, I mean, I've heard of cases where scissors and forceps and all kinds of things were left behind.
Wow. Well, I guess that would be easy to find. I was looking for those. Jeez. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I've heard a number of young people say something that I don't quite understand. And that is, they will say, if they hear about some event where someone was beat up or taken advantage of, I might look at that and say, well, that was a terrible situation. I feel bad that it happened. I feel bad for that person. Young people today, I believe, will say, not my problem. and I'm seeing more.
That is called irresponsible.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And, it ties with that word that I absolutely despise. I used it yesterday in an email, but I did not use it the same way. And that's the word whatever. Whatever. It's like when people say something, they may respond, whatever. But I used it yesterday in a sentence, and I said to the person, we can do this or that, whichever you choose. And either one's fine with me. But I've seen this with young people more and more to my dislike. And here's why I'm saying this. In front of me, I have an article from Heat, HEATST.com. Heat Street is the full word, Heat Street, but it's HEATST.com. And it says, 8 months after taking office, the mayor of a small Texas town has become the first transgender elected official to come out publicly in the state's history. Quote, as your mayor, I must tell you something that has been with me since my earliest memories. I am transgender, end quote, said Jess Herbst, mayor of New Hope in Collin County, and I believe that's Texas. Goes on to say, she gave the message in an open letter posted on the town's website. Herbst, who has been documenting her transition on her personal blog, jessherbst.com, also talked about her decision, how her decision affected the family. Quote, it's a gender identity, not sexual preference that applies to me. I love my wife, and she loves me, and we have no intention of change. My daughters have been adamant supporters of me and are proud to tell people their father is transgender. I love, quote, I live my life as a female now, and I will be performing my duties as to the town as such, Herbst wrote. Now, they keep changing, like is he, she, he, and they're talking about the same person. Right. He and she. Now, Dr. Shealy, medically, is that possible that you can be a he and a she at the same time?
Of course not. That is severe psychopathology, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that goes to the whatever, hey, doesn't affect me. Well, really, because it does. It does, because this person allegedly is the first to become a transgender official to come out of the closet in Texas, and I don't think this person is going to be the last. I think this is just the first, and there are going to be more and more and more and more of them.
Well, this is another legacy from our former, thank God, Muslim, idiot, bastard president.
Yeah, you're talking about Barry Soetoro, a.k.a. Barack Obama.
whatever his name is and wherever he was born, which I don't believe was in this country. And, of course, the serious rumors that his wife is transgender, that his wife is actually a man.
Right. Yep. I even said, probably a couple of years ago on the air, I used the term Barry, Michael, and the rented children. And that's what we were thinking back then. Barry, Michael, and the rented children. And Joan Rivers said publicly, "Oh yeah, we've got a tranny in the White House." And it's pretty clear that she was talking about Michelle. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back, and I'd like to talk about depression and standing up straight. Can it help? Skipping breakfast and heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norman Shealy. Dr. Shealy, I just got off the phone with our web hosting company. And the reason I called them is because our website is down. And so if you type in usaprepares.com, you get this nice message that says, the website you were trying to reach is temporarily unavailable. Please check back soon. If you're the owner of this website, please contact technical support as soon as possible. So I did. I got a call this morning from Miles in Europe, and he let me know that our website is down, and I mentioned to him I'll take care of that. And so I called, and what has happened is we've been hacked. We have been hacked. Our website has been compromised, and so the hosting service took us down as a matter of protection. I got to tell you, this is really annoying. And I mentioned to him what we do, and he said, yeah, you could be targeted because of what you do. So a side benefit of what we do here at USA Prepares, exposing the corruption, exposing the lies, talking about the solutions, those kinds of things I think some people find offensive, and we have been targeted for that. So that goes, it goes to no good deed goes unpunished. So if you're trying to get to USA Prepares, you can't until we fix it. So I just want to let you know that that is what's happening right here. Has it happened just to us? No, it hasn't. Several of your instructors have experienced the same kinds of attacks. Their websites have been taken down. And what does that do? Well, that affects commerce, right? So if someone wants to purchase products from the website that we talk about, if they think that they are as good as we think they are, and they want to buy them the same way we do, they can't do it because, in this case, our website is down. And what else does that take down? It takes down our emails. So if you're sending me emails and you're wondering why I haven't responded, now you know, because I haven't seen them, because the website is down. Wow. Okay, so who are these nameless, faceless people? I hope we get a chance to find out. And I hope they get all the karma that they deserve.
Of course, I wish we had a caning punishment the way they do in Singapore. I'd like to see them caned to bleed in the public square.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. And, I was talking with our children yesterday, last night. I didn't realize this, but one of our children knows is related to one of the people, to the woman who was killed in Missouri years ago. And they had an injection, a lethal injection, and they killed the man who admitted murdering a mother and 2 children. And he was executed last night. I didn't realize that one of our children knew one of the relatives. And we were talking about this last night, this absolute sickness where people do things, these heinous, very disturbing acts of murder and inflicting pain and punishment. Kind of like on a lighter scale, just walking down the sidewalk and having a group of thugs walk up to you and then sucker punch you, knock you out, you fall face down, break your nose, your face, your jaw into the sidewalk. From that all the way to being sliced up and murdered and dismembered. And Dr. Shealy, is there a level of defectiveness that would allow this? I mean, the physical defectiveness. Have these people been born that defective, or do they learn it? How does this happen?
I think this relates to past lives. In other words, they either did something evil and didn't pay for it in that life, or they somehow were involved one way or another in an absolutely unequivocal legal bunch of stuff.
Are you saying something like Adolf Hitler would be coming back?
He already
in
has.
Another. Okay.
He already has. He just got out of the White House.
Yeah. And there's so many people who think that Barry is such a good guy.
I can't think of anything that I consider good about the bastard.
I can't either.
Actually,
I can think of one thing good about him, and that is that he's
out of the White House.
Out of the White House. That's the only good thing I can think of. I was sick to my stomach when I heard that he was selected to run the country. I was sick again to my stomach when I heard that he was selected to do it again for another 4 years. And I'm delighted. I'm delighted that he's been put aside. What a dysfunctional guy. And the first thing he does after he leaves the White House is goes and plays golf. It just, by the way, Dr. Shealy, and I've been trying to think of how to say this without offending too many people. And I don't know if I can, but I'll try. You know how some people, mostly city type young thugs, will wear their baseball cap with the bill facing backwards? You know what I'm talking about? They wear their...
Oh,
okay.
yes. Okay. It looks like a thug.
Yeah. It looks like a thug. Well, I saw an image of Barry Soetoro yesterday on the internet with his hat facing backwards. Now, he did that. He put it on backwards himself. That is the guy that was in the White House. Now, we never saw him in the White House looking like that thug, but I saw it yesterday, and if our website was working, I'd have it posted page 1. Highlighted, bolded, underscored, italicized. That picture of that thug. That is the guy who was the CEO of USA Corp. And it just goes to show you who he was. The same guy that would put his feet up on the Resolute desk. The same guy who would sit on the desk. How offensive that is to we the villagers. How offensive. I'm so glad he's out of office. Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article about depression, and we've talked about depression a lot on this broadcast. And this article was very, very positive. And it said, you know what? If you're depressed, stand up straight. Sit up straight. Posture. Your posture, if you are sitting upright, if you are standing upright, it indicates that you are proud. It increases your level of being proud. It increases your persistence. It increases your confidence. It increases your self-esteem. Go ahead and stand up straight. What a great thought, I think. What do you think, Dr. Shealy?
Yes. No question about it.
And it's so obvious. When you see people who are hunched over, obviously their self-esteem has been eroded. Obviously. Why else would they be hunched over? And I remember when I was growing up, my dad would say, Vinny, and I'm talking very, 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 very young, stand up straight, shoulders back, stand up straight. And unfortunately, I don't think enough parents said that to their children when they were in the formative years. 3, 4, 5.
Vince, I blame the government for most of the problems.
I do too.
And the reason is over the last almost 100 years. In fact, we're 104 years since the beginning of total government evil. That is the formation of the Federal Reserve. And then, of course, in Roosevelt's administration, that was truly the beginning of making people irresponsible by offering too many welfare things. And it has just continued now through today. Whether it'll ever be turned around, I don't know. I have to say, despite the gnashing of teeth and worse by the, I think I have to say, psychotic left, I have to approve of what Trump is doing. Hopefully, he beats hell out of the bastards.
No disagreement from me. I think I think it's interesting that we're seeing a guy. Here's what we see, or at least what I've seen. When Barry was running the show, he would have his entourage and he would have his Hollyweird associates, these people who have been tattooed and branded and have dysfunctional families. Those people. He would be surrounded by them. He was almost always with others. And I've seen images of Donald J. Trump. He gets on the plane by himself. He walks down the hall by himself. He's his own man. He's not saying, hey, what do you guys think? Is this okay? Should we? It sounds to me like he is running the show. It sounds like to me he is acting as the president should act. In charge. A guy who can make decisions, a guy who can set policy, a guy who knows the difference between right and wrong. That sounds like the guy who is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue now, rather than a guy who says, wait, can I go play basketball? Can I go now? It sounds like we have a much, much better person, infinitely superior person in the White House now than we had for the last 8 years, the disgraceful years of the United States of America. Dr. Shealy, when we come back, can we talk about skipping breakfast and does it cause an increase in obesity, heart disease, and diabetes? Dr. Shealy is with us, Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, skipping breakfast, I understand that it raises the risk of obesity because we may eat other things later. It can increase heart disease. It can increase diabetes. You think that's possible?
I think not only is it possible, it is definite. No question about it. The single most important meal of the day is breakfast. You'd be better off to eat a big breakfast and nothing the whole rest of the day than skipping breakfast.
And is that because we have been asleep typically for somewhere around 7 or 8 hours just prior to that, and then going another, let's say, 4, 5, 6 hours until lunch? It just increases that duration? Is that part of it? Or because we've come back from a body repair overnight and we need nourishment? Or what is it?
Well, I think it is we do need energy to function, and we get our energy from eating the right kind of food. So eating a donut and a cup of coffee is not breakfast.
Right. I totally agree with that. You mentioned coffee. Well, one cup of coffee in the morning, is that
with a cup of coffee? It's
including
the sugar in the donut that's bad.
Okay. How about if, and if a person were to pick one of two evils, one artificial sweetener versus sugar, your preference if they're going to pick one of those evils?
Well, I think artificial sweeteners are almost as bad because they keep your hypothalamus, the control center, wanting and liking sweets. Mm-hmm. So it helps keep you addicted. So there's none artificial sweetener that I consider safe.
Okay. There's an article on the internet. It's called, the website is studyfinds.org, studyfinds.org. Title, Study, Social Media Making People Antisocial, Jealous. Okay, and then it goes on to say, a recent global study conducted by the Kaspersky Lab reveals that social media users are interacting less face-to-face than in the past because of this newfound ability to constantly communicate and stay in touch online. In the study, researchers found that about one-third of people communicate less with their parents, about 31%. 23% less with their partners. 33% less with their children, and with their friends, 35% less, because they can follow them on social media. I find this is me speaking now, I find this alarming. And then it goes on to say that among the findings, 61% of the participants felt worse after finding someone unfriended them, and 59% were upset after someone posted negative or critical comment on their profile. 57% said after going on social media they felt sad. 57% said after going on social media they felt that someone they follow has a better life than they do. That would be jealousy, right? 59% felt sad after seeing photos from a party that they didn't attend and posted on social media. And 45% were unhappy after seeing photos from a friend's happy holiday outing. So we're talking about jealousy, and that's what I feel is happening with social media. It's these taking pictures. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at my dog, look at me, look how wonderful things are for me. I'm happy. Me, you should be happy too, but too bad it's you because you're not here having fun like I am. I mean, that's what these messages seem to indicate to me, Dr. Shealy.
Well, I consider it drivel, and I'm being kind.
Yes. Yes. And I remember being raised, being braggadocious is not a good thing. It's not a good thing to brag. But that's what this social media seems to foster, encourage, enhance, condone, and build upon.
Exactly.
Coming up, Dr. Shealy, I got a call from one of our instructors. And this particular instructor had a toothache, and it sounded like it was infected. And my response was get it looked at immediately. And I'd like to discuss how dangerous serious toothaches can be. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor, and if you'd like to go to his website, sign up for that same free newsletter that I get multiple times per week, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, just one final comment about the social media, and I was reading some of the comments that people have posted about that article. And one person said, social media, fake news, fake profiles, fake personalities with fake lives. Unplug and go meet and talk to real people in the flesh. You might just find it more adventuresome and fun than fake or faux friends, F-A-U-X, on fake book. Very well put. So
absolutely.
There you have it. Mm-hmm. Why not? And that's why I don't have a cell phone with me. That's why I refuse to be on tap. I refuse to be interrupted. My family knows where I am. We use two-way radios and those kinds of things, so we can be in constant communication should we have an emergency. However, I am unable to accept those images on a smartphone because I don't have one about look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm not interested in being interrupted. And that gets back to what we were talking about during hour number one, which is choose. Choose between what's real, what's important, and being interrupted on your cell phone. Dr. Shealy, I got a call from one of our instructors. And this particular instructor talked about a toothache, and it was a very serious toothache. And this particular instructor said that it was so painful that medication was used to dull the pain. And I said, you know, a tooth is in the jaw. That's darn close to the brain. And it could be very, very, very serious. What are your thoughts about decaying teeth in the jaw, in the head? What kind of things can go wrong?
Well, you know, the jaw, of course, includes the gums and as well as the teeth, etc. And infections in the bone there can be exquisitely serious. First of all, an abscess under a tooth is quite painful because the bone doesn't have, you know, it's not like an abscess in a muscle or under the skin. There's no room for expansion. And so it can be serious. And especially if it's in the upper jaw, the drainage from there has access to the brain. In other words, the veins coming out of that area may go up through the skull and go into the cavernous sinus, etc. And so an infection in that area, in the upper jaw, is even more dangerous most of the time than one in the low jaw because it can cause even a brain abscess. So whatever it is, if it's that painful, it suggests something's wrong and it needs attention.
Captain John Regan had come to one of our expos years ago, and he was talking about teeth, amalgam fillings, the dangers of mercury in the body, and so forth. And one of the things I remember him talking about was root canals. And he talked about how the tooth is killed and then put back, the roots put back in the mouth, and how dangerous that is to have dead tissue, if you will, back in the body. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I know there's a lot of antagonism towards root canals. I can't quite personally see the difference between a root canal, taking out the tooth and putting in an artificial tooth. You've still got dead material there. Mm-hmm. So I'm not as opposed to root canals as some people now. As far as amalgams are concerned, I consider it at least as bad as the tobacco industry, and I think the American Dental Association is guilty of crimes against humanity for recommending both fluoride and dental amalgam.
Okay. And in that same line of thinking, Dr. Shealy, what about the water heater industry using aluminum rods as sacrificial anodes in the water heaters? Is that a crime?
Let's face it. A whole bunch of businesses, commercial big businesses, are either stupid or criminal. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, I don't know a commercial boxed cereal that I would let in my house, for instance, among other food industry problems.
I remember my mother was a label reader of ingredients when I was growing up, and she would say things like, this cereal has BHT in it, or BHA, and they're known cancer-causing agents. And I remember calling up, and she called up one of the cereal manufacturers, and they said, no, we don't put that in our cereal anymore. We don't do that. And we said, yeah, but it says it on the box. Oh, well, that's in the packaging. So we don't put it in the cereal, but we put it in the package that
That's even
contains the
worse.
cereal.
Or at least as bad. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's quibbling over minutia.
Right. And I'm trying to remember the name of that bleach. That it's a wood bleach, and they use that in cereals, like some of the breakfast cereals that many people eat today, and they use them as an ingredient in the cereal. And so we called up the cereal manufacturer and said, "Why do you do this?" And they said, "Well, it's a bleaching agent, and it makes the cereal lighter." And I'm talking about something like the color of Wheaties. It's like, what color would it have been? Wheaties is like pretty unappetizing. It's this brown flake, right? What color would it have been if they didn't modify the color by bleaching it? Interesting. But it seems that people buy food based on appearance rather than nutrition. And it's kind of like the guy who said, those vitamins, I really don't like the taste of them. I have never, Dr. Shealy, I've never said, don't you have any vitamins that taste good? It's never occurred to me that vitamins have to taste good. It's never occurred.
Let's face it. Ignorance is rampant.
It is. It is rampant. And so, cough drops. Lots of people buy cough drops. And so now my question is, I don't want them to be ignorant about cough drops. Is there something that if a person takes cough drop after cough drop after cough drop that they become addictive? Is there a problem with using cough drops? And I'm not talking about, prescribed medical cough drops. I'm just talking about over-the-counter Hall's, eucalyptus or something like that, or a generic brand, or some kind of a Luden's cherry, or just commonly available over-the-counter cough drops. Is there anything wrong with, other than the sugar? Is that the only problem?
In general, yes. I mean, a lot of them contain eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is good, but sugar is not good. Mm-hmm. Sugar is an artificial food. It is not real food.
And is that beet sugar and cane sugar, or is it just one of them?
They're both the same. The beet itself, or the sugar beet, or the sugar cane would be okay to eat because it includes minerals, vitamins, and fiber. Mm-hmm. But the sugar contains nothing but poison.
Okay. What about brown sugar? Is that any different?
That's a joke. Brown sugar has a little bit of molasses in it. It's still sugar.
Okay. So brown sugar, cane sugar, beet sugar, we should avoid them all, correct?
I have not bought it since 1970.
There's a post on the internet. It's on dailymail.co.uk. It's a heartbreaker, Dr. Shealy. And it shows a middle-aged guy and his mom. And it looks like they're having breakfast at a booth in a restaurant, or coffee. And here's the headline. The worst day of my life. Heartbroken son films the moment his mother with dementia forgets who he is for the first time. So here we have this mother who doesn't know that the guy that she's having, a meal or a coffee with at a restaurant is her son. And what's really, really sad about this is it says that Joey Daly, he's 45, Dublin, Ohio, is documenting his mother's battle with dementia through a weekly video series. Molly, that's his mom, was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia at age 65. She's now 67.
Wow, now that's a biggie. That's worse than Alzheimer's.
And she is now in a nursing home and can no longer bathe herself or take her own medication. In the latest footage, her heartbroken son fights back tears as he's asked her questions about their family that she couldn't remember. And so he's asking her, what about Dad? And she couldn't remember, Dad, meaning her husband. And then she couldn't remember that she was this man's mother. And we're talking about a 67-year-old. Dr. Shealy, I'm concerned about this because I honestly have not talked to anyone who said, my memory's better than it used to be. No one. It sounds like this is a plague that has been unleashed on us. And we talk about that when we come back.
Absolutely.
Dr. Shealy, we were talking about dementia, and I'd like to share a short story with you. And I know a woman who was getting up there in years, and over time, and it seemed to be pretty darn quickly toward the end of her life, she lost the ability to really talk in complete sentences. She forgot to take her meds, she forgot to eat. Toward the end, she forgot how to chew. Dr. Shealy, it seems like there's a plague that has been unleashed upon us. Would you care to comment on that?
Well, I believe the number one part of the plague is statin drugs. There's no question that the incidence of dementia is almost as the great as the incidence of severe muscle pain and nerve damage. Number two is a total deficiency in our diet of lithium. Lithium is a trace mineral that is essential to make the most important, what I call bright-eyed, bushy-tailed wake-up hormone, serotonin. And it has been demonstrated beyond any doubt whatsoever that lithium orotate is exquisitely safe and remarkably helpful in preventing dementia. Next, B vitamins themselves. In today's world, because of severe pollution, I think we need approximately 25 times the amount of recommended daily intake of everything, not all minerals, but all vitamins that were recommended 70 or 80 years ago. So all of those are contributors. Now, in addition, using your mind, in other words, being active with your mind, not watching the boob tube, no wonder it's called the boob tube, is helpful.
Okay, so is that the same recommendation for someone who is experiencing dementia? Increase or start taking lithium orotate and B vitamins?
Immediately.
Okay, and what is your recommended dose, Dr. Shealy, for, let's say, someone's now 70s, 80s, 90s?
I would say probably 20 milligrams a day of lithium orotate.
20 milligrams of per day of lithium orotate. Okay.
Yes, I started this 40 years ago because of other reasons, but in general, it is just one of the stabilizers of your whole nervous system.
Okay. Is there anything else that you recommend in addition to the B vitamins? I guess that would be B complex, correct?
Well, and you want 25 milligrams. That's sort of the basic. 25 milligrams of all the major Bs. Except B12, of course, where there'll be 1,000 micrograms. But all B1, B2, B3, B6, those at least should be 25 milligrams. No question, some omega-3 fatty acids can help. Being physically active can help. There's no question about that. Exercise improves brain function.
Okay. So reading, is that something that you'd recommend?
Absolutely. You know, I have a television. I don't think it's been on in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch it. I would far rather read a book.
Sure. It's quieter, too. Now, there are people who say, well, I need that background noise. I don't think I need noise in the background.
Actually,
I think,
you need a quiet brain.
Yeah.
And you can't have a quiet brain with background crud going on.
Mm-hmm. And that's the same for sleeping, right? Don't we need it quiet when we sleep?
Oh, yes.
Well, Dr. Shealy, another 2 hours has gone by. Wow, so quickly. I want to thank you for being with us today, spending your time dispensing medical advice and educating us into what we need to know and do and think about going forward. And I think what you just last talked about with the problems that we have with dementia, lithium orotate B complex. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Norman Shealy, normshealy.com.